The Bow Group is Britain and the world's oldest conservative think tank. And for the past 70 years, we have been campaigning for conservative ideas and ideals and for what is best for Britain. I can certainly think of better circumstances to celebrate our 70th year in than during a pandemic. And coronavirus has, of course, had a very negative impact on the Bow Group's ability to do things as it has for everyone. We have continued, however, to campaign on the issues that matter, to ensure that the government implements a full Brexit in the spirit that it was voted for. We've continued to scrutinise what is going on in Northern Ireland. We have continued to oppose mass and illegal immigration. And we have continued to scrutinise the government and figures around the government that are unelected and unaccountable and yet having a major influence on the policy-making process. The government's net zero green agenda will be the most expensive policy in British history. It will cost not billions, but trillions. And beyond money, it will remove many sacrosanct liberties from the British public. Perhaps most importantly, it will have no discernible effect on the global climate. We are very pleased to introduce our senior patron, Sir John Redwood MP, to speak on this issue further. But if you are able, I would ask you to consider donating to the Bow Group using the link below or via our website. It has a major impact on our ability to continue to hold the government to account on the issues I've just mentioned and many others also. I hope that 2022 will be much better than the last few years, and I hope that we can celebrate our 70th anniversary in style. A very happy new year to you.
In the dying months of last year, a perfect calm often descended upon UK weather. It meant the wind didn't blow very much. It meant the windmills didn't turn. It meant the electricity generators had to burn much more gas and operate their remaining gas power stations flat out to keep the lights on. The shortage of wind created a perfect storm in energy markets. As our generators tried to buy up more gas to make sure we had our power, so there was a general shortage of gas across the continent of Europe. The problem had been made worse owing to a dispute between Germany and Russia. Germany had decided she wanted to become more and more dependent on Russian gas. The Allies, led by the United States, weren't very happy about that, but Germany knew best. When it came to sign the contract to start pushing the extra gas through Nord Stream 2, a brand new expensive pipeline available to route gas direct from Russia to Germany, the Germans started to push back. The European Union too has regulatory authority, and they were reluctant to give regulatory approvals. The dispute between Russia and Germany meant that Russia only supplied the minimum quantities of gas to the continent that she had to supply. Europe had gone into the winter short of gas anyway. They had not managed to rebuild all their stocks across the summer. And so we saw the combination of increased demand for gas in Britain and the general shortage, particularly from supply factors on the continent, combined to take the price of gas through the roof, making it very difficult for any business that needed to pay spot market prices to keep going. And in due course, it will have a big impact on consumer bills here at home. My message to the government for 2022 is to take the energy crisis in Europe seriously. We're not going to get much help from our allies on the continent. They are in the process of making the position worse. Germany is about to retire all of its nuclear power stations. At the same time, the new German government wishes to bring forward the date at which all the coal power stations in Germany will close from 2038 to 2030. That means closures quite soon. It means a double big gap in Germany's energy supply as she runs out of nuclear and runs down coal. That means more pressure on gas while they're trying to put in the extra renewables they think will bridge the difference. In the United Kingdom, we used to have an energy policy based on three main aims and principles. First aim is keep the lights on. Surely the most important thing of all must be security of supply. We had a wobble in the closing months of last year. We managed to keep the lights on, but it was a close run thing. 3 coal power stations which hadn't been demolished needed to be brought back into use to provide some extra cover. The remaining nuclear stations, most of them to be phased out this decade, all had to run flat out. And of course, all the gas stations had to be in full operation because wind made practically no contribution whatsoever to our energy when we had those long periods of calm. The second great aim of energy policy must be affordable power. It was always a crucial aim. It was there again, very sensibly, in the 2019 Conservative Manifesto, when they promised us that they would bring energy prices down by bringing forward additional measures to do so. And why do we need to do that? Well, if you want any kind of industrial strategy that's going to work, business needs a lot of good value or affordable gas. You need that kind of energy to transform things. You need gas as a feedstock for petrochemicals. It has to be affordable and competitive because American gas is so much cheaper than European gas, and Asia also gets hold of gas often at more advantageous terms than the new European spot market prices, which are through the roof. So affordability matters, and it matters to every individual living in the country because most of us still live in gas-heated homes, and we are now facing a very big increase in our gas bills indeed this April, unless something magically changes in the next few weeks. And then the third leg of energy policy was always quite rightly a very strong green element. We did need to clean up our energy production. We did need to make sure that we weren't fouling the air, and in more recent years, a growing concentration on trying to reduce the amount of carbon dioxide the processes produce. But you have to try and do all three. You have to try and balance it. Otherwise, you could end up with a genuine energy crisis which damaged your economy, undermined those on lower incomes most, and left people in danger of being cold or not having jobs that depended on heavy energy use at all. So what are the government's options to get through the pending difficulties, which will be at their worst without proper action this spring? Because in April, the energy price cap will move up again, and that's when you'll see the really big increase in bills, which many people will find difficult to afford. And we still haven't solved the problem of how we store enough gas and how we produce enough gas to meet more of our own demands, to take some of the pressure off the prices in the market that we otherwise have to pay in order to keep things going. I don't think it makes any kind of green sense to say that we mustn't produce our own gas, but we must import somebody else's gas. Indeed, surely it is worse from the green point of view. More carbon dioxide is generated if you have to ship the gas in big tankers with all that transport fuel involved on top of the CO2 that's generated when you burn the gas. We have allowed the position to develop where we import more than half the gas we need, and yet sitting out there in the North Sea is a lot of gas and a lot of oil which we could extract for ourselves and route it to our domestic needs by pipeline rather than needing expensive and elaborate transport systems, including big gas tankers. So, government, reverse your policy, which is trying to run down the North Sea too quickly, and put in a policy which is domestic first. It must make sense. You could deliver that gas and oil at contract prices, which were on average lower than current spot market prices. And above all, it would be more secure because it would be British oil and gas which wouldn't be diverted somewhere else when the price was slightly better or when the other country exporting liked some other country more than it favoured ourselves. We then also need to tackle the shortage of electricity. The government wants a great electric revolution. It wants us all to rely more on electricity for our transport and our heating and for our industrial purposes. But it isn't putting in enough extra capacity. So the first thing the government should do is to say we're not going to demolish any more of those old power stations all the time we have problems with security of supply. Thank goodness there were still 3 coal power stations left for the dying months of last year when they kept us going. Do not knock them down until you have much more alternative power available. And when you're looking at alternative power, don't always rely on wind, because there are times when the wind lets you down. And you can have as much wind generating capacity as you like in theory, but if there is no wind, there is no wind power. So let's have a better mixture. Let's have more hydro. Let's have some more pumped storage. And by all means work away at getting more nuclear. But we need to be realistic. We're going to have less nuclear power in 2030 than we have today, because all but one of our existing nuclear power stations are scheduled to close. And there will not be any new nuclear stations that aren't already in build before 2030, because it takes so long to get their approvals and safety types through the regulator and all the rest of it. Government is very interested in small nuclear. That could be the answer for the 2030s, but it won't have any impact today. So, in conclusion, we need affordable power, we need available power, as well as needing green power. We need to trust our own sources more and import less, because we cannot rely on the imports, and when they're available, they may be very dear. We are blessed with access to a lot of oil and gas, as well as wind power of our own, so let's make sure we use that for the transitional period when renewables cannot take the full strain. And before that electric revolution is fully underway, we're still going to burn a lot of fossil fuel, as does the rest of the world. It is greener as well as more reliable to have our own to burn rather than importing it and relying on the goodwill of foreigners.